there's parallels between quantum entanglement and consciousness, which we've talked about in the past. So for those who don't know, quantum entanglement is a phenomena where two particles, like two photons of light, become linked in such a way that their properties remain correlated, even when they're separated by vast distance. So when one particle is measured, the state of its entangled particle is also known instantaneously, regardless of the amount of distance between them. And this is a kind of strange synchronicity that defies classical physics. And it does suggest that our universe is more interconnected than we once believed, and perhaps even going beyond traditional limits of space and time. So some philosophers and scientists are now saying that there are parallels between this quantum entanglement concept and the nature of consciousness, proposing that the mind itself operates non-locally, meaning it's not in the brain. You know, it's in the biofield, but it's also in these morphic fields. In other words, we're all connected, right? So there's this theory that Dr. Sheldrake puts forward of morphic resonance. And that suggests that there's these behaviors, these patterns, even memories that are passed through these fields that connect all living things. And that's how these butterflies can do this migration, even though they go to locations that nobody's directing them to and they've never been to before. They're tapping into some kind of collective memories through these non-material fields. And critics, again, would argue that, okay, this is too difficult for us to test, right? So obviously it can't be real because modern science can't test it. but others are seeing this could be the framework upon which we can explain some of these seemingly unexplainable phenomena like instincts and intuition and homing and migration. These theories, I'll say, they're still speculative and controversial, but they do point to this emerging view that all of life is interconnected, that it all is made of this intelligent design by God, and whatever power you believe in. For me, that's God, and that there's even a participatory component where consciousness may not simply arise from matter, but matter is shaped by consciousness. So in theory, then, if humans are connected through some kind of field, then that means your changes in your thoughts and your emotion and your attention could ripple through space and time in that field to influence others. In other words, your energy should affect others. So if that's true, is that what we're actually seeing? And it is. So this is where it gets really fascinating. We've talked before how your biofield doesn't stop at the edge of your skin, right? It reaches all around you. It intermingles with other fields. We're constantly broadcasting messages, signals to other people and animals nearby. Have you heard of Lynn McTaggart and her Power of 8 experiments?
No.
Oh, you would love this because this reminds me of the power of prayer. So she has she has books written about the power of 8. So basically, she's shown that when you get a group of people together that focus a healing intention on another person, even if they are miles and miles away from that person, you can measure changes in that person's health, in their mood, and their well-being. Her work has been replicated across many countries and many cultures. And it's suggesting that there is this field that connects us and that you can positively influence people through your intention. She's documented cases, for example, where people's blood pressure has dropped, tumors have actually shrank, and anxiety has disappeared. And this all followed after the group intentionally sent like their healing thoughts to that person. And what's even more remarkable is that it wasn't one direction. The people sending the intention of healing also experienced a healing effect. So it seems that this has reciprocity to it, right? And this is backed by numerous studies in psychoneural immunology and bioenergetics, showing that you focus your intention and you could impact your own physiology and the world around you. This is like the healing power of prayer, right? You have these prayer chains. And people swear that they have these prayer chains in motion, and they see miracles happening, right? It's the same thing. You have a group of people setting your intention. And Joel, correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to recall a verse in the Bible where Jesus says, like, is it when three or more of you are there? Like, I'm present. It's some right. Do I have that somewhat correct?
When two or more, we're
When
two or
two or
more,
more?
I'm there present.
Yes. So she's harnessed that biblical concept to help people um, transmit some kind of healing energy to others. You can do this yourself, right? The Bible tells you to speak life over your own bodies. Do it and watch yourselves respond. You can pray for someone and believe that your intention has reached them. You can even enter a room that's chaotic and enter with like this peace and calm in your heart, and you can watch how others around you can calm down. I do that a lot to help manage a situation, use my energy to kind of influence their field, right? So all of this is all piggybacking on previous podcasts that we've done where we've shown that mind over matter isn't just a motivational phrase, right? It's actually a scientific principle. um, there is this new study I found that was on chicks. So you know how before I've talked about how a person's intention can influence matter, and we talked about this with the random number generator in
Hmm.
the episode we did on biophotons. There was another researcher, and you know how chicks will imprint on like the first thing they see moving, which is
Right.
usually their mama.
Hmm.
So what they did in this experiment was they had the chicks imprint on a robot, right, instead of their mama chick, which is just mean, but
Hmm.
but just go with me here. So the
Yeah.
chicks imprinted on the robot. Okay. So what they did was they put the robot in the room without the chicks there. So there was a cage that was empty and there was a robot. And they had the robot move randomly, and they measured its movement with devices so they can see, yes, in fact, the robot is moving randomly. Okay. Then what they did was they took these chicks that had imprinted on that robot and they stuck it in the cage. And the chicks couldn't get to the robot because they were in the cage, but they wanted to be with the robot because that was what they imprinted on. So what they found was the robot was started to move um, toward the chicks. It stayed on that half of the room. Like it still moved around because that's what it's programmed to do, but it didn't go to the other half of the room anymore. It only stayed over there by the chicks. Now, if you took chicks who did not imprint on the robot and you stuck them in the cage, which was one of their control groups, the robot went back to just randomly moving all across the room. So the researchers concluded that these chicks had some kind of focused intention where they seemed to be able to influence matter in the form of this machine. I mean, I think to me that's pretty incredible. So if you don't, oh, and we're actually almost out of time. Can I give you one last quick example?
Yeah. So when the bearing goes out in my car, can I sit there and really wish that bearing would get better, and the bearing will be okay? That,
So
that that would sure save some mechanic bills.
yes, so oh my gosh, so okay, if you're ready to go that far, there are people in this space who study this who say that you can influence cars and machines. So it's like we're talking about with being a good steward. If you have that intention toward that matter, it is more likely to hold itself up for a longer period of time. And so there's some people that will say, like, if your car breaks down, for you to sit there and think, what kind of intention am I having when I'm in this car? Right. And it doesn't necessarily even mean you have a negative intention to your car. It means check what your emotional state is. Are
Hmm.
you someone who's negative? Are you complaining about people all the time? Are you spreading gossip? You know what I mean? Or are you somebody who is radiating with the fruits of the spirit? Right. What they're
I
saying
mean,
is it all affects everything.
yeah, well, I mean, you're touching on like hypochondriac, where people that are just, oh, I'm going to get sick. I'm going to get sick. Well, guess what? They get sick. Um, and whenever you have any kind of issue, it's hard, isn't it, to think positively about that and not, oh man, I'm getting older. I'm just going to wear out. I'm going to, I mean, we're that's just our normal, reaction to things like that. That it's gonna it that we're hardwired. That's why we call them stoplights and not go lights. You never come back from town and say, "Hey, I hit 5 go lights." We don't remember what makes us go. We remember what makes us stop.
Yes, yes, we tend to focus on the negative, and I think part of that's a survival mechanism, right?
Yeah.
So you don't run into trouble, so the body's kind of looking out for itself. But yeah, if we can shift to the positive, it will change even things around you. It will change. And so let me give a quick example. In the light series that we did, we talked about Dr. Pop and his various experiments that he did. And remember, we talked about being able to suck photons of light out of food, and how carcinogens would affect the coherence of light, for example. So there's also another experiment that he did and others have done that showed that living organisms absorb each other's light. Okay, so this goes into this concept we're talking about here of how we can actually affect each other positively or negatively. So he did this with using water fleas and small fish and even sunflowers, and others have, expanded from there. He showed that those organisms actively absorb light from each other, and that even bacteria will swallow up light. So here's one example. He took 2 cell cultures that were identical and he placed them in different containers and he separated them with glass. One of these cultures got zapped with something that was harmful. It could have been radiation or poison.
Mm-hmm.
And if the glass that was separating these 2 petri dishes, if that glass blocked UV light and IR, so infrared, the cells that were not treated stayed safe and healthy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if that glass allowed the UV light and the infrared to go through it, the cells that were not treated with the toxin, they grew sick and they died. And so the one cells sent a light signal to the other cells and told them, like, we're dying, right? And these experiments were all done in darkness. They were done over 5,000 times with consistent results, suggesting that the cell broadcast a death message by light to the other cells. So what this means is that we are communicating with each other on a subconscious level, even. And what I want to get across here is that was an experiment that happened in a cell culture. It was not in a holistic body. So we do know that we send these signals through fields, and we send them through light. But I think that this is kind of a tribal adaptive advantage that God gave us. It's not a negative thing. We're like, oh, if one cell's dying, now I'm going to send this signal over to you, Joel, and now you're going to start dying, right? I think that the body as a holistic, as a system, will interpret that signal and it will adapt accordingly. So just like plants do, we've talked about this before, that plants send all kinds of signals to each other, warning them like, oh, there's a drought coming, or, oh, there's locusts here, and they will respond accordingly. So we know this happens in humans with microRNA in exosomes. And we've mentioned this on the podcast as well, that you're sending material to somebody next to you to help you upgrade your hardware, right? That's in your body. And that gives you an adaptive advantage. And so now what I'm saying is, I think we're also sending these signals through light as a tribe, to help build resiliency by sending these warning signals that, like, oh, I'm injured. This is what happened to me. Here, prepare that this might be coming, right? This also explains part of why, and Pop believed this too, that healing is more likely if your practitioner is in harmony with you, right? If your practitioner believes you, if your practitioner is aligned with your principles, that maybe food is medicine, or that herbs or homeopathy can heal you, you're much more likely to heal if that practitioner is aligned with you. And we think part of it is through these signals. So this type of instant communication could explain how schools of fish and like flocks of birds coordinate so seemingly and effortlessly and instantaneously. they seem to maybe communicate through some kind of like invisible channel that maybe Dr. Sheldrake is correct that it's some kind of morphic field. But no matter what it's called, I think because we're not into labels here, right? So call it a morphic field, call it a biofield, call it a field of light, whatever you want to call it. I think the bottom line truth that we can even witness in our own lives is that we are all connected, not just to each other, but to animals and plants and the earth and to God.
Friends, want to dive deeper into our thought-provoking conversations? Become part of the Beyond Labels family today by joining below. For any gift amount, you'll get access to the full, uncut episodes.
Every contribution, whether big or small, keeps this podcast going.
So join us and expand your Beyond Labels experience. Thank you.